Okay, good evening. I want to call to order the Guilford Selectboard meeting of May 11th, 2020. As chair of the Guilford Selectboard, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Scott as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and pursuant to Addendum 6 to Executive Order 01-20 and Act 92, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. In accordance with Act 92, there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. However, in accordance with the temporary amendments to the open meeting law, I confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by video with additional access offered through the telephone. Oh, there's Michael. We are using, yay, okay, we are using Jitsi Meet for this remote meeting. All members of the Guilford Select Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if desired, participate in this meeting by going to https://meet.jisi/Guilford Selectboard 05.11.2020. B, by providing, I confirm that we are B, providing public notice of instructions for assessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting, including how to access the meeting using the video in our posted meeting agenda. Instructions have also been provided on the town website at guilfordvermont.net. And I confirm that we are C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please call area code 802-254-4117. And I confirm that we are D, continuing the meeting if necessary. In the event the public is unable to access this meeting, it will be continued at a time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. Let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance of all members participating in the meeting. Michael Becker. He's here. Miranda Porch.
I'm here.
Don.
I'm here. I just was trying to unmute. Okay.
Thanks, Michael. Zon Eastis.
I'm here.
Okay. Rusty Marine.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Okay. And did I miss anyone? I don't think so. Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to recognize the public. I don't see any public on the video, so we can move to the rules of procedure. The rules of procedure, I shall briefly point out, govern the way that the public and the select board interact with one another with courtesy and the correct etiquette. But being there is no public visible, I'm not sure we need to use the rules of procedure. Are there any additions to our agenda this evening, ladies and gentlemen?
I have none.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda order?
I have none.
Okay. I would ask for a motion then, if possible, for the edited, revised minutes of our previous meeting, which was on April 26th. Do I have a motion?
I will move it.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, I'm going to take the roll. Michael Becker.
Aye.
Zon Eastis.
Aye.
Rusty Marine.
Aye.
Miranda Porch.
Aye.
Richard Wazansky, aye. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. Peter, do you have a highway update clause?
Yes, I briefly spoke with Danny for a minute and a half as he was rushing out of the office when I was here last Thursday. The road crew have been focusing on their usual spring cleanup at this time, which primarily has meant grading the roads, blowing leaves, cleaning ditches, and cleaning culverts. He said, other than that, one road crew member had been out with an injury unrelated to work, and he started work back again this week.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I did have a question about that. I had a conversation with Danny this week as well, and he said that Alan is working if Danny feels the need to have him, he was calling Alan to pitch in, and I didn't know whether that was an additional highway crew member or whether that he's taking someone's place.
So, from the conversation that you and I had previously, Richard, I think that Alan came in 2 days to cover for the other person who was out. We do have this grant project over on Carpenter Hill Road that needs to be completed. Prior to an email this afternoon, we had a deadline for that it needed to be done within the next 2 weeks, and so Dan was concerned about being able to get that done and continue the work that the road crew has been doing, and so he was going to consider bringing Alan in to do work on that grant project, since the town will get reimbursed for it.
Okay.
But I received an email and I printed out a copy, as well as I communicated via phone with Danny that grant has now been extended to October 15th for completion. I don't know what Dan's intentions are around that at the moment, but that's what it is right now.
Okay, so if we have an extra person working, then that's covered by grant funds, then that's legitimate in regard to the grant to increase the number of workers on the project?
Well, he actually was, from what he told me, was going to have Alan come in to be the primary person working on that project, partially because he has not done any cleaning of ditches or culverts for 2 or 3 years. And he feels that that's a big concern, and he wants the other regular employees working on that instead of special projects at this time, is what he told me.
Okay. So I'm still not sure about my question. I want to know whether the town is paying an additional employee in regard to what we think, how many employees we believe we have. Are we having an additional employee? That's something to find out if you don't know.
Well, let me communicate with Dan, and I will get back to the select board.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
Is Alan retired at this point? I mean, I know there was an announcement that it was forthcoming, but
he's been retired as of March 30th.
Okay.
There was also some good news I had in my conversation with Dan, who said that he was going to postpone his retirement for 1 year, which I thought was very good news. Okay, are we all here? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep, it looks that way.
Hear you. Are you on mute, Veranda?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. I knew I was missing that mellifluous voice. Okay, on to new business, the letter of support from the BDCC. Did you all have time to look at that?
I have not seen that.
Well, Peter, do you want to discuss that?
Sure, let me just...
I have it in front of me if you want me to.
If you have it in front of you, I needed to open the document up.
Okay, I'll take care of this. Jennifer Strompson, who is the Director of Programs for the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, is writing to me. Perhaps that's why you didn't receive it, but I thought it was going into the folder. She's writing to ask if the Guilford Select Board would once again be kind enough to provide a letter of support for a grant application. The U.S. Agency of Commerce has provided with historic levels of funding due to COVID-19, we have a window of opportunity to put in place something that can make a lasting difference in terms of regional economic recovery. A new level of small business support in the form of zone-wide teams with 3 small business support specialists. This new region-wide capacity would help companies better utilize financial assistance available, increase financial literacy among business owners, and provide sustained technical assistance over the next 3 years to support business recovery and growth. As you know, the regional development corporations work with businesses from every sector and of every size. You may also know that we lack a dedicated funding stream to deliver this kind of small business support at any scale. While Southern Vermont has become very good at pulling together resources based on disaster and closure recovery, this is an important funding opportunity and a chance to bring in federal resources which would not otherwise reach our communities. She's attached a template, a letter, which we could use to basically provide a letter of support. And I'm asking the select board if you have any opinions or commentary on whether we should provide this letter of support. This would be, we've done it before, written a letter of support for them for a grant application. Any comments?
I have no problem. I have no problem with it. I don't really understand what it's going to fund. Whether it's people on to deliver programming.
Yes, it's going to fund. It's going to fund a staff of 3. It's going to be called Emerge, and that staff and the Emerge program will be working on reigniting the southeastern Vermont economy. And all she's asking us to do is just write a letter of support for the application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Does anybody have a problem with it? I have no problem with it. Michael, you say no?
I have no problem.
Okay.
No problem. No problem.
Okay. Rusty? Oops. I don't see him here anymore.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Are you in? Can we, as far as you're concerned, can we send a letter of support with their application?
Yes, I have no problem with that.
Great. Thank you very much. So we will do
What
that.
about Don?
He already said so, I think.
Oh, he did? Okay.
All right, Peter, so we will create a letter of support using the template.
Yep.
I'd like to,
Can you send me the template that they have, and I will work on it? Last time we did it, we wordsmithed it a little bit to make it sound more like Guilford than just the standard.
great. I'll look at a draft of it when you've got it done.
Okay. When you sent me the email, you did not include the attachment to it. If you could do that, please.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, not a problem. It happens.
Okay, now we're on to reappointing the fire warden and deputy fire warden.
Yep. So every 5 years, the town has to make recommendations to the state fire service to either appoint or reappoint the fire warden and the deputy fire warden. I shared some documents from them with all of you. They generally very strongly recommend, if you have someone who's been in the role and is willing to do so, to reappoint those individuals. Currently in Guilford, our fire warden is Dan Stoughton and the deputy fire warden is Mike Kachuk. They have both been doing it for many, many years. They're both active firefighters, obviously, on our fire department. And I would recommend to the select board to follow the state's recommendations and to reappoint Dan and Mike.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
A lot of feedback in the back. I don't know where it's coming from. But anyway, wasn't it true that Mike was more active than Dan was in the past year? Didn't we discuss that?
Yeah, that was about a year and a half ago, and from feedback I've received from several people, including people on the fire department, it appears that some situations in Dan's life have changed, and he's picked up responsibility and has been doing more in the past year.
Okay.
So the document I looked at today, I thought I only saw Mike's name on it, and he was being sort of nominated as the fire warden, not the deputy.
Nope, there's multiple documents in there.
Did I read it too quickly?
And so one is to reappoint the deputy, and one is to reappoint the warden. So it just so happens on looks like. Oh, I did. I apologize. I was just looking at scanning the document again. It looks like
it's only Mike's name, right?
Well, there's two documents. There looks like so we are having issues with the scanner in the office. It's been eating documents. So there is a second page that I have here in my office that recommends appointing Dan as the warden and Mike as the deputy warden.
Okay. Okay, Mike is deputy. All right. Does anybody before we need to have a formal motion to make these appointments? Do we not?
Yes, sir.
So before we go through with that, does anybody have any problem with appointing those two gentlemen as warden and deputy warden? Do I have a motion then to make these appointments?
I so move.
Thank you, Miranda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll take the roll then. Miranda?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. Motion carries and those appointments are official. Thank you very much, Select Board.
Okay, I will have Dan and Michael sign those documents, and I will return them to the state.
Thank you. Okay, on to the dog ordinance. Now, we don't want to get too heavily into this because it's a hefty document. But Peter, can you summarize what the revisions are? I mean,
I do. So I've put together a summary actually in the words of VLCT that I think put very well the changes between their previous model dog ordinance, which our 2009 ordinance was based off of, and this new one. And I was just going to read that out here because I think they put it much better than I could.
Hey, please do.
The most recent iteration of VLCT's model dog ordinance endeavors to take a somewhat new approach to the age-old problem of how to regulate man's best friend. Rather than placing the burden of punishment on dogs, this ordinance attempts to place it with those best positioned to change their behavior and who are ultimately responsible for their actions, their owners. Specifically, the ordinance designates any owner who has violated an ordinance a set number of times within a given time frame, both to be determined by a select board, as a reckless dog owner. In this case, this ordinance would require the owner to submit proof of successful completion of a behavior modification program designated to improve their understanding of dog ownership responsibilities. Instead of treating all ordinance violations the same by imposing the same fine, this new model takes into consideration the impact of harm dogs inflict upon society by instituting a tiered enforcement structure. And then they go on to list a variety of different tiers and what can happen. Few fields of law demand, this is again coming from VLCT, few fields of law demand so much immediate attention, elicit such reactionary responses, and draw the concern and ire of the public, or are confusing to administer and enforce as much as Vermont's dog laws. An ordinance may not solve or address your town's dog-related problems, but when coupled with a commitment to enforcement, an ordinance will likely lessen the frequency of these infractions. And they do go on to state one small point, which I think is relevant to the later conversation in this meeting tonight, is that per VLCT, the Vermont Supreme Court has made it abundantly clear that, quote, a town's right to control dogs that bite does not give rise to a generalized duty to control vicious dogs. Rubin versus Town of Pulteney, 1998. Existing state law provides only limited authority to regulate the behavior of aggressive dogs. A select board is given authority to investigate and hold a hearing when there is a written complaint of a vicious dog, but there's 3 categories that must be met. One, a dog bites a person. 2, that dog is off of the owner's premises. And 3, that bite causes the bitten to require medical attention. All 3 of these must be met to trigger the select board's statutory duty to investigate. However, this is the minimum that the law requires. For various reasons, the select board may want to take more responsibility by regulating aggressive dogs before they get to this point. In such an instance, the select board can use a local ordinance to potentially head off more dangerous consequences by extending the town's authority over potentially aggressive dogs beyond the basic legal obligations in order to better protect the public. That's all.
So, I mean, so basically, in summary, we're coming up with a formula for tiered infringements. I mean, right?
Correct.
And those are not. We need to decide the tiers if we want to take this ordinance. If we want to accept the ordinance.
Yes, we do. So I made a few changes to make it appropriate to Guilford. So a couple, I highlighted in red a couple of the points that the select board needed to make a decision on. One, for example, was nuisance 5, which states a dog that disturbs the quiet. I'm just using this as an example. We don't need to go through all of them. But that disturbs the quiet, comfort, and repose of others by barking, whining, calling, or howling for a continuous period of blank minutes or more. So that's one. So we need to determine.
So that needs to be filled in.
Yeah. So there's a number of other blanks that need to be filled in, including the fines or fees. So one of the new changes that they made is that if the town notifies someone that they will be fined for a specific violation, that if that person does not contest that the town can not take them to court and go through the whole judiciary process and just have that person pay a waiver fee. And generally the waiver fee is less than the fine would be, obviously because we have less staff hours and other things that go into that process. And so the select board needs to determine what, first offense, second offense, third offense, and what the waiver fees for a variety of things are.
The way that I would like to suggest we handle this is that we don't do this in a meeting, but that I would be willing to volunteer to work with Peter to create a draft that would be a conceptualization of what the tiers are and what the fines are. But I am very happy to have another volunteer, or 2 of us, or just another select board member and Peter fill this out, and then we would look at the draft and we'd be able to vote on it and talk about it. But at the present time, with nothing filled in, there's nothing really to talk about, and I don't think that we should get bogged down in talking about dates and tiers and fines in our meeting. So that if we had a draft that we could discuss that was filled in, I think that would be much more productive. Is there any agreement about that?
Yeah, I agree, Rusty.
Okay. Does anyone want to volunteer instead of me?
Instead of you?
Yes, or in addition to me? And Peter?
I will help out with it.
Okay.
Okay, so Richard, how about this? I'll take the document and I'll make some proposals in it, and I will email it to you and Veranda, and then you can give me your input if you think it's sufficient or excessive or not sufficient enough, and then we can represent it at the next select board meeting.
Yeah, we'll probably have to have a conversation, the 3 of us, to iron it out, and then we can present it. Very good.
Okay.
I also volunteered, but I was on mute, so I mean, if anyone's feeling overstressed about this, I'm also willing.
So we can only have 2 select board members so we don't violate open meeting law. So
Okay, well, Michael, why don't you do it? Maybe you're a dog
Sure.
lover.
Okay, I am
All
a
right, so
dog
it's
owner.
Michael, Richard, and Peter, right? Let the minutes so reflect that. Excellent.
Okay,
Moving
Richard,
right-
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, there was also the suggestion in the document that Peter read that a town could adopt a stricter ordinance. And while I don't want us to work on that now, I do think that Guilford should have a stricter ordinance than, one that only kicks in when a dog has caused medical harm to somebody else.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think we'll be looking at that.
So I think that we should postpone that for later, to work on later.
Yes, and
I do think this-
the fact that we have 3 complaints before us, I think that that's impetus for us to look very carefully at this and try to be prophylactic as well as punitive, if you don't mind my saying so.
and I do think that this new ordinance is stricter than our existing one.
Good. Okay, so then I would also like to then, in the light of this, make this suggestion that in regard to the complaints, that we should really take the complaints under consideration when we have the ordinance that will lead us to addressing those complaints. So we can inform the complainers that we are rewriting the dog ordinance of Guilford, and we will take their complaints up in the context of the new dog ordinance when it's passed by the select board. What do you think about that idea?
I think that's a good idea.
Anybody else?
I think it's a good idea, except for the one case that seems pressing, which is the one we've heard about now repeatedly. Are we okay with putting them off probably for another month?
Well, you're talking about Sarah. What I thought we could do is email Sarah and tell her that we're working on it. And her question was, would it be worthwhile for her to collect documentation on previous incidents? And I would say that we should tell her yes, that it would be helpful in terms of looking at the case in the light of the new dog ordinance.
And Richard, it seems that she has already done that because I received communication from one of her neighbors who shared an incident just over a year ago with the same dog that has caused the current problem. So it does appear that she has been speaking with neighbors and other residents along that road to communicate with the town.
Mm-hmm. Good. So then we could email the 3 complainants that we take their complaints seriously. We are forging a new dog ordinance, and that we will take their complaints up in the context of that ordinance. How does that sound?
I guess, sounds good. One question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can we? Are we sort of obliged to enforce the ordinance or the law that was in place at the time of the incident?
It's complex.
That was going to be my question.
And so at the moment, because there's 2 parts to that answer. So right now, the select board has to enforce the dog ordinance that exists, because that is the one that is in place and it has not been repealed or changed as is. If you change the ordinance, then that is the one that will be used to address the situation, regardless of when the event occurred. And that's because there's no statute of limitations on dog incidents.
Now, I have a question because, Peter, you wrote the letter to the dog owner to which we added a paragraph. Isn't isn't that letter still relevant? I mean, I feel badly that we haven't gotten in touch with the dog owner. We can tell the people who have been harmed by this dog that we're working on a new ordinance, but the dog owner, will have not heard anything from us. And I'm a bit concerned about that.
Yes, and I appreciate that. Yes, it is part of our obligation to communicate with the dog owner to get their side of the situation. I will add that we just delayed it by sending the letter by a week just so the select board could have this conversation. The other thing is that the communication I received from the other person on Lee Road did state that they felt that the owner has been taking steps to attempt to control the dogs, albeit was not certain as to whether or not the steps were sufficient enough, but did state that the owner was trying to take action, or has been trying to take action over the past year. But yes, you are correct. We do need to be in contact with them and give them the opportunity to share their side.
So, but that letter has not been sent yet.
No, because per the conversation I had with Richard and Veranda, that we would delay that till after this meeting.
Right. Do you have the letter in front of you? Do you think we should, or?
I don't know. I don't have it immediately in front of me, and it would take me a moment to find it.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to email that letter to us, and then we can have responses come in about what the board thinks about sending the letter as it is written?
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
And that's the letter to the dog owner.
Correct.
Right. We still haven't solved the problem of whether we have to follow the ordinance as it's. I mean, do we have to take action according to the ordinance as that is currently in existence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so we have a dog bite, and therefore we have to take action, right? A dog bite that required medical attention. And doesn't that kick into the fact that we need to have a civil, some kind of...
a quasi-judicial hearing?
We need to have a hearing.
Yes, it's called a quasi-judicial hearing. So per our current dog ordinance, it actually has to happen. A dog has to have bit in a person 3 times in order for that to happen.
That's right, and it hasn't. The dog hasn't done it.
Not to my knowledge, it has not happened 3 times.
Okay. So then we don't have to take any action yet. I think that's so ridiculous. I would want it to be 1 time. Oops, I shouldn't express my opinion like that, but I did. One dog bite seems to me to sufficiently call out the truth. It can be a very bad dog bite.
And per what VLCT was saying, something such as a dog bite, the select board could make the choice in the revised dog ordinance to make that more severe than the state says. So it could be 1 time, and that you need to have a hearing and you need to take action instead of 3, which is what our current one states.
Right, and that would be speaking to Miranda's point of becoming more firm. So
yes, and our question. That it's a technical question. Can we even hold quasi-judicial hearings in the era of social distancing?
Well,
I mean, would it be like a Zoom situation or Jitsi?
I think that's a very good question, and I don't think that we can.
Yeah, that's not correct. I actually I sent an email to the select board earlier today, sharing some information in which it was one change that the legislature made last week.
Oh, yes.
That now enables, because this is one thing that had not changed, because quasi-judicial hearings are a unique beast in their own right. And they finally made a change that we can hold them remotely. However, if either victims or dog owners don't show up to them, that does pose, even if they're remotely held, that does pose some complications for the situation.
But we don't have to worry about that right now.
Not at the moment.
Right. So if I may summarize of what we've just discussed, and Peter, please get this down, as precisely as possible.
Yes, sir.
Peter and Michael and Richard are going to create a draft, a new dog ordinance. Peter is going to, that's number one. Number two, Peter is going to send the draft letter to the dog owner to the select board for review before it's sent out. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything else that we just decided?
No. Before we move on, I just did want to say regarding the two other dog issues that I had listed on the agenda here. I did receive subsequent, Richard knows about this, but the rest of the select board did not. I received subsequent information from the person on Sugar House Hill that informed me that the owners of the problem dog installed an electric fence to control the dog, which has been successful. So that situation has been ameliorated and fixed, and the dog owner appears to be quite apologetic and feels bad about the previous situation. And then the situation on Cemetery Hill Road, the person that contacted me there stated they have not yet had an incident. The dog in note has been on their property, and a couple of weeks ago, the dog owner was chatting with the couple and informed them that the dog has been known to be vicious in the past, and warned them that it was their responsibility to avoid the dog, which, per the dog ordinance, is in violation of the dog ordinance.
Yes.
So that situation, to my knowledge, no event has occurred, but those folks are concerned about this dog.
Okay. And there was something that we left out of our summary. We were going to send to the complainants a note, an email that says that there is a revision to the dog ordinance underway, and that their complaints will be taken up in the context of the new dog ordinance. Right? So that's an important piece.
Yep. I am noting that now.
Okay. Are there any?
And do you think? I just have a question. Do you think that it's relevant to tell, in communicating with those people, to mention that we're creating a new stricter dog ordinance?
I would not say that at this time.
Okay.
What does the rest of the select board think? It sounds like it has too much qualifying before.
It seems like we need to, I don't know, I feel like we need to enforce what we have in place now, since the complaints have been sent. Are we just putting their complaints on hold? And
no one's been bit 3 times.
Correct.
So there's nothing for us to do.
Oh. Yeah, okay. I guess I see what you're saying.
That's why we want to change it and make it firmer. But I was asking if Veranda's suggesting that we say to the complainants that we're making a firmer dog ordinance, and I'm not. And my own feeling is that that's not appropriate at this time to use a qualifier at the time, because we don't know what we're going to come out with.
I think that's correct.
Is there any other comment? Are you all there, Rusty? Zahn?
Zahn lost the connection. He's going to be back on in a moment, he said.
Is Rusty there?
I'm still here.
Hi, Rusty. Nice to have you. Nice to hear you. Just checking in on everyone. Okay, so I think that we're done with dogs for a little while.
Yes.
Okay, so now on new business, paving. Michael Becker had sent us an email about paving. Michael, do you want to basically state what your email said, and do you still hold that opinion?
I do. I mean, I think now that I'm allowed to, share it with everyone else, I just, after we approved buying the new truck at our last meeting, I had some reservations about it. I know it's important and necessary, but I immediately started thinking about other ways that we could save some money. I mean, because I feel like it's inevitable. Everything I've read really indicates we, should plan on a tax revenue shortfall. And I guess so. I floated the idea to Richard and Peter. The first thing that came to mind was paving, and whether that was something we could consider just not doing this year. Peter is, and I think I'll let Peter explain sort of the fallout from that, I guess. Part of it is we don't pay for all of it. I think it's only 20%.
That's correct.
But at the same time, it's, I don't know, a significant chunk of change. And I think also, Peter, you explained that, this grant money only comes around to help us pave every, 7 years or something like that?
Yep, it's generally on a 7 to 8 year cycle that we get it. We did, so as I'm sure you folks remember, we did actually receive a similar grant last year to pave Weatherhead Hollow Road. Because another town in our VTrans region who was going to receive this grant backed out, we were told that we were next on the list to be considered. And so we actually have not been awarded this grant as of yet. We don't normally hear about these until, in a normal situation, we don't normally hear about the responses on these till mid to late June. So it's while we were encouraged that there was a high likelihood we would receive it, it has not been guaranteed. And given the situation we're in, we don't know if the state is going to be cutting grants. They may not, but we don't know. And so, yes.
So if we didn't receive the grant, would we go? I mean, and we were in a different. If we weren't in COVID-19 hell, would we go on to pave anyway? Probably not, would we?
No, we would. I don't think that Danny was considering doing any paving this year. But because of the grant, he was considering it. Sorry, Zahn is trying to enter the meeting again.
So does that leave us with the fact that maybe we wouldn't pave unless we got the grant?
That was my understanding from what Dan had told me. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But Michael, are you saying that even if we got the grant and had to come up with 20%, that we shouldn't pave?
I guess I'm looking for other people's opinions. I was just, and whether, I'm also interested to know if the select board feels like we need to, take action now as far as shrinking the budget, or if we need to kind of wait and see until, tax time comes and how we make out there.
So may I give a little brief input on this?
Sure, please.
Yeah.
So one thing that I shared previously with Michael, and this is my personal opinion, is we have applied to this grant. We don't have a response to it yet. I would encourage the select board to personally wait to see if we do get the grant, because even at that time, if the budget shortfalls for the next fiscal year are such that we really the town would not be in a place to spend $35,000, which is what 20% would be for this grant. We can decline the grant and we don't have to accept it. So I think that instead of saying no and backing out of the grant right now and losing it altogether, not knowing what our financial situation will be come October, I think would be poor foresight in my personal opinion.
Are there other members of the select board? I agree with you, Peter. Do other members of the select board have an opinion about this?
Well, my question would be, this is Rusty, what roads are we talking about paving and what condition are they in?
We are talking about paving 2 miles of Heinsberg Road from the Brattleboro line to the Halifax line. And I have a bunch of photographs that Danny sent to me of the road. It has not been paved in almost 9 years. If you want, I'm happy to share with you the photos. You can also drive the road yourself.
Well, to the Halifax line, some of that's dirt road, right?
Well, it stops at the bridge just before the Halifax line, right below the Hunt House.
Okay, I mean, Guilford keeps going a little ways.
Yeah, Guilford
right?
keeps going for about another 3/4 of a mile, but the pavement stops at that bridge about a couple hundred yards before it gets to Green River Road.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about Peter's recommendation that we wait to see whether we get the grant or not, and then make our decision about that in regard to this specific instance of budget cutting? Do we have Michael?
I'm in favor of that. Yeah.
I am too. What about you, John?
I'm comfortable with waiting.
Okay, and Rusty?
Yeah, I'm comfortable waiting.
Okay, Miranda?
Yes, I'm comfortable, and I'd like to hear what Danny thinks about the consequences of not paving it.
Well, actually, I can give a little bit of information very briefly on that because I did speak to Dan about that last week, and he did state that should we get in a severe budget situation, that he feels that paving is certainly one of the first things that he could cut from his budget for the upcoming fiscal year without a real detrimental long-term effect on the town.
Interesting. Good. That's good to hear. That news. Michael, in regard to your question about should we be cutting the budget now or making budget cuts now, it's not on the agenda. We can put a discussion of that on the agenda for our next meeting. How's that?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Let's move on.
Like to have, it's hard to, like, with the open meeting laws, like, I'd like to just, with the 5 of us, just get some thoughts out there where we're all listening at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sale of the town truck. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So, obviously, at the 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, you folks approved the purchase of the new 1-ton truck in line with the capital plan for the highway crew, and Dan had already had several inquiries from a variety of local businesses just stating that in the future, if the town did have a truck for sale, that they would be interested. So Dan approached 3 different local businesses based in Guilford who had expressed previous interest and stated that it would be on a first come, first served basis. He gave them all the same amount of time to reply and noted that Mike Kachuk from MT3 had come back to Dan saying that he was interested. Dan was initially asking $25,000 for the truck, and Mike offered $20,000. And one thing I did share with Richard at the end of last week is that in a conversation Dan was having with the dealer in finalizing the details of the new truck, he told him that he had an offer of $20,000, and the dealer told him that was $7,000 to $8,000 more than they expected that we'd be able to get for the truck. So it's a very good.
Not $78,000 more than we expected to get.
$7,000 to $8,000 more than the sale price.
78. Sorry.
I'm sorry. So yes, so
our truck has been sold, and we are $20,000 the richer for it.
Correct. So the thing is that Richard was just looking for the select board to see if anyone had any opposition to selling the truck to MT3.
No,
Position. Seems like the assistant
No.
fire warden is a great candidate for.
great, and it's and kudos to Dan for staying on the case and getting the $20,000 for the truck, which lessened the cost of the new truck. Very good. Let's move on. RFP for Taylor Lane Culvert Project. That's in your wicket, Peter.
Yes. So at midweek last week, I received an email from VTrans notifying us that we can now begin work on existing grant projects. So last summer, we had been awarded a structures grant to replace or actually upsize and replace a culvert on Tater Lane that has collapsed and is in very poor condition. And since receiving that, so the next step is I need to put together an RFP and put it out. However, in conversation with Richard, we thought it prudent to inquire from the select board, given our current situation, whether or not we should pursue putting out an RFP. So this grant is for $175,000, and the town's share of that is 10%. So that's $17,500 is what we would be the maximum of what we would have to pay for that project.
And even if we put out the RFP, it doesn't mean that we have to go forward with the project.
That is correct. We do have language in our model, or our, not our model, but our RFP template that does indicate that if it is in the best interest of the town to not complete the project, that we have the option to do so.
And if anyone's driven up that road lately, it is a mess. It's pretty rough, Tater Lane.
I'm in favor of putting out the RFP.
I am too. Is there any Miranda?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Don?
Yes.
And Rusty?
I'm fine with that.
Good, thank you. Excellent. So the RFP shall be sent.
Okay, I will work on that.
Thanks, Peter. The next item, we're moving right along here. The next item on the agenda is under old business, and it's the budget scenarios. And I wasn't planning to have an extensive conversation about that, but Peter's Excel spreadsheet, that's what I was referring to, which showed us, I had it here a moment ago, which showed us how much at what, 10%, 15%, 20%, and 40% of budget cutting, how much actual dollars that comes to.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you all get a chance to look at that?
Yes.
Does anybody have any comment about that? I think that would be a good tool for us when we have our conversation in 2 weeks about what to do about the budget at this present time. That would be very helpful. But Randy, Rusty, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, just I'm for what you guys were talking about. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I do have it here.
I did have a conversation with Penny this afternoon when I came into the office and shared with her some brief information about the spreadsheet I shared with all of you. And she, from things that she has been hearing as well, she said that she's anticipating that the shortfall is likely going to be somewhere between the 20 and the 40% range, thinking that the situation, hoping that it won't be 40%, but that it wouldn't be unforeseen to see that amount. And with that, she has already taken some steps to amend her portion of the budget and has made some changes which are going to go into effect July 1st, and that's going to cut $66,000 from the budget as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just glancing through the spreadsheet, I noticed that the Cemetery Commission has more money than any other commission. And while I haven't discussed the budget with the Cemetery Commission, I'm sure that we can donate back, some of the money that we have in our rollover reserves.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, in that sense, for all of the commissions, all three of the commissions that are noted there, the planning, actually all four of them, all have reserves in the reserve fund, and it would be easier to just eliminate the current year budget and have folks use the reserve funds that they have for each of those commissions, if it's necessary.
Right.
Right. So I think that, it would be important. I don't know, do we need to know what in regard to our discussion in 2 weeks, do we need to know the exact steps that Penny is taking in regard to her getting $66,000 out of the budget, or because that number would be helpful to us to know that we are going to be dealing with $66,000 that's already taken out.
So those
we request a short summary, written of what those cuts are.
Those cuts would have to be discussed in executive session because they relate to personnel. So those cuts actually are something that we could not discuss publicly, which we can do if that's like what the select board wants.
Yeah.
We need to be able to look at every possibility. So yes, I think we all have to go into executive session at some point. Not that I recommend it at all, but
We do have to cut somewhere, and that's
yeah.
Well, so
If
I think that
we can't do it publicly,
right. So why don't I have a discussion with Penny and talk with her about the select board's interest in hearing more specifically about the cuts that she's making in the town's budget, and then what her opinion is about going into executive session. Perhaps can we invite her into an executive session?
Absolutely, you can invite whomever you wish to be there. It just can't be discussed publicly.
Right, and for good reason. So, what does the select board think about that?
So,
Well, Richard, I think that. Okay, Michael, do you want to talk?
Right, go ahead.
We have our financial advice committee, or whatever it's called.
Finance advisory
so, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said it's called the Finance Advisory Committee.
Yes, I think that we need to get all of the information possible and go into an executive session with the people that we've invited to help us.
Yep. So I will talk also to the Finance Advisory Committee, which has not had a launch meeting yet. I think it's on the horizon. Peter, has there been a date set? As far as I know, there hasn't been.
No, we are struggling to find a date in which everyone can meet. So there were some emails today back and forth about figuring that out, and I'm waiting for a response. I've received a response from Rusty, and he's the only one at the moment. But that was just this afternoon or early afternoon.
Okay.
Never mind. I'll talk to you privately, Richard. Never mind.
Okay. So yes. So I will. I'll talk to Peter and I'll talk to Sheila about the Finance Advisory Committee's role in this. And as you remember, we added the task of their advisory capacity in regard to perhaps developing a new budget in the context of meeting the potential to make that we might have to make cuts. So the committee is aware of that. It's in their charge, actually. Okay, so just to summarize what we've just done now is that I know that Richard and Peter are going to talk about the Finance Advisory Committee. I'm going to talk to Sheila about the Finance Advisory Committee and letting Sheila know that we're planning to talk about budget matters at our next meeting. And what else was there? Did you have?
I was just curious. So, I mean, what's the point? I'm not opposed to it. I'm just curious what the point of talking about it at the next meeting versus this meeting was. I'm not sure what we'll know more than that we know now.
It wasn't on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
Well, the budget scenario stuff was on the agenda tonight, which is.
Do people want to discuss the budget now? I frankly don't feel like it, but but I'm
Well, I'd like to have this stuff in front of us,
what?
you know, to look over things, you know, not just do stuff off the cuff.
Yeah, that's the way I
Is
feel.
there a chance that I don't know what the governor's planning, but is there a chance that we'll be able to meet in person in 2 weeks?
There'll be a press conference on Wednesday and Friday of this week, and hopefully we will find out more information at that point. At this time, the answer is no, but we don't know what those two press conferences hold.
Well, is it possible? I mean, given his statement of May 6th, people can meet in groups outside of no more than 10. You know, in a social way. Why couldn't the select board meet outside? Because we're not a group of more than 10.
I like the idea of meeting outside.
It still has to. The only situation is it still has to be open to the public.
Well, we can arrange that.
But then it can't be more than 10.
Correct. And we cannot restrict people who want to participate in a select board meeting.
But could we have them join us by phone?
Instead of working out the details on this during the meeting right now, how about we'll work on the details and I'll be in communication with Richard about this.
Okay, right. And so what I'm hearing is it would be, and I feel this very strongly, that it would be good if we could get together to talk about the budget in person. I find it very difficult with, personally, with having a lot of papers and a lot of knowledge that we need to have, doing it remotely. And I think others of you feel that way too. Am I correct?
I would agree with that.
No.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Michael.
I'm a little unclear. I mean, I understand Penny has some recommendations, but where does that sort of fall into the schedule here of all these various financial events that we're talking about?
I'm not sure I follow your question, Michael.
Well, I mean, somebody said Penny has $66,000 worth of cuts she's recommending.
Correct. Well, not recommending that she's going to make effective July 1st, which she has the authority to do as an independently elected official.
Right, it's not our budget.
Okay, all right.
That's
Sorry.
That's to the town clerk and the town treasurer budget.
Okay, so she has right. Got it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Okay.
The select board goals. Did everybody have a chance to look at the brilliant preface that we saw there? I just wanted to make sure that we saw that and that we. I don't think that we've approved these yet, right? We're going to approve them or not at this moment.
Well, you approved the goals at the last meeting, but it was the discussion of the preface.
Okay. So did everyone have a chance to look at the preface? And I don't think we have to vote on the preface, do we? Since we already approved the goals.
Correct.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that the select board had read the preface, and if anybody had a problem with it, then we have a problem. No problem.
Did the preface go out? I don't think the preface went out to everyone, did it?
I thought it did.
I thought I have it in front of me.
Oh, good for you. Great. I don't know where it is.
It was in the folder. You put it.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure I saw it in the.
Well, I'll read it to you. It's brief. May I read it?
Please. Yeah, I don't see it in the folder.
Okay. Each year, the Guilford Selectboard sets short and longer-term goals called visions below, in addition to our ongoing responsibilities. From these goals, we create a work plan as a framework to guide our actions. With the rise of the COVID-19 pandemic, we questioned whether the entire plan might be inappropriate. The Select Board agreed to move forward, acknowledging that community safety and preparedness are now among our highest priorities. During this crisis, we are collaborating with State Representative Sarah Coffey, as well as with Guilford Vital Commissions, community organizations, and neighborhood volunteers who strengthens our response. And that's the preface. And then it goes into Vision 1, Guilford is a welcoming, inclusive, affordable, sustainable community, and then we have the steps that are the framework for that particular vision/goal.
Yeah, what Zon did is that he took the spreadsheet and turned it into more of, something easier for the public to understand. And our idea was that we could put this on the website and perhaps even put it on Front Porch Forum, because I feel as if it's part of our transparency.
So So right now we've already approved the goals, if you recall. And we're not voting on the preface. I just wanted to know if anybody had any problem with the verbiage in that preface.
Yeah, it sounded reasonable to me.
Well, sounds good to me.
Okay, very good. Let's move on then. COVID-19 update, Peter.
Yes. So, based on several different conference calls that I have been a part of in the past 2 weeks, as well as the governor's press conference earlier today, they have noted that Vermont has stabilized as far as is stabilizing as far as our cases of COVID-19, and we are now have the third lowest case rate in the country. Our case rates are now doubling approximately every 3 months instead of days or weeks, as other similar areas of New England and the country. The state is also using a broad spectrum of metrics, which I won't go into the details right now, but to review a variety of stages or steps to reopen the state throughout this summer. And the different models they are looking at could be anywhere from complete reopening, which would have fairly devastating effects on Vermont and a dramatic increase of COVID cases, to a staged approach similar to what the governor has been taking over the past 2 weeks, and not seeing any increases. The governor also announced today that child care centers may reopen on the 1st of June as long as they follow state guidelines. Last Friday, he announced that summer day camps may proceed as long as the summer day camps also follow state guidelines. And to assist both the child care centers and day camps to meet the state standards, the state anticipates making up to $6 million in safety grants available to organizations to facilitate that. Unfortunately, this time, due to COVID-19, they still feel, they being the state, particularly the Agency of Education, feels that it is unsafe to have in-person graduation ceremonies and no in-person instruction for schools at this time. And then lastly, they announced today that under certain restrictions that retailers may open, and the restrictions can be found on the Agency of Commerce and Community Development website.
Thank you, Peter. Any comments or questions? Excellent. Let's move on. Warden.
Get them. Okay. I move that we pay the following warrants. Payroll week 5/3/20 for the sum of $7,908.59. Payroll week 5/10/20 for the sum of $5,932.46. And expense warrant number 2021 for the sum of $132,000 $364.02, and expense warrant number FW21 for the sum of $58.50 for a total of $146,263.57. So the main expenses here were for the truck that we've already discussed, and also for retirement funds.
Thank you, Brenda. Do I have a second? I'll second. Thank you, Michael. Okay, discussion? I'll take the roll then. Don?
Yes.
Rusty?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Richard? Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, any communications here?
None.
All right. Do we have action taken?
I have the actions from the previous meeting. So you approved the Guilford Country Store liquor and tobacco license. You approved the purchase of the new truck. You appointed Ann Ryder to the FAC. You adopted the select board annual goals. You delayed the hiring of an administrative assistant. I was to make some estimates of potential budget shortfalls and what they would look like for the FY21 budget. There were 2 letters to be written related to the Lee Road dog incident. A friendlier message was to be added to the sign about the town office closures. Veranda and Zahn would write the preface to the select board goals. Peter would put the goals on the website, and then, yeah.
Very good. Most of that.
Has the sign been changed? A few people have talked to me about that.
Yeah, it has.
It was changed as of Thursday afternoon when I drove past it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, and then actions to be taken, Peter?
Actions to be taken from this meeting is I am to return the fire warden recommendations to the state. I am to coordinate with Richard and Michael on finalizing the details of the new dog ordinance to be presented at the next select board meeting. I am to share the letter that was written last week with the dog owner for the incident on Lee Road with the select board. And I am to put out the RFP for the project on Tater Lane. And that was it.
Very good. Thank you. Do I have a motion for adjournment? 8 o'clock, precisely.
Yes.
I'll make a
I
motion.
move to adjourn.
Oh,
Oh, Rusty, thank you. Michael, are you seconding?
I'll be happy to second. Yeah.
Is there any discussion?
I think we should rehearse
yeah.
for next
There it is.
meeting, so we won't have so much in the way of technical
Yeah,
difficulties.
we've had a lot of technical difficulties, and I apologize if it's not my fault, but I mean, it does make it more difficult to have a smooth flowing meeting. Peter, maybe we want to look at, we can talk about, maybe we want to look at another platform like Zoom or GoToMeeting, which I'm not sure have this much difficulty. Anyway, was there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, but you just needed to take the vote, Richard.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you, Peter. Zahn,
Yes.
Rusty,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Richard, aye. The motion carries, and thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone. And sorry for the technicals. We will make this better, I'm sure.